I'm Megan Thompson, 28, and I've always been the family disappointment. Tonight, at our celebratory dinner, Mom glanced between me and my sister Samantha before delivering the line I've heard variations of my entire life. Maybe if you were more like your sister, she sighed, glowing about her new job as chief marketing officer at Anderson Global. I smiled tightly, fork stabbing my salmon, never imagining that within hours I'd discover something about perfect Samantha that would shatter our family forever. Before I dive into this story, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe to join our storytelling family. Trust me, you'll want to stay for this wild ride of betrayal, revenge, and finding strength when your own blood turns against you. The Thompson family has always been a careful arrangement of roles. Samantha, 4 years my senior at 32, was the golden child valedictorian homecoming queen, Harvard Business School graduate. I was, well, the other one, the creative one. The one who still hasn't figured things out yet, as Dad liked to say during holiday gatherings. My childhood bedroom walls were plastered with art while Samantha's showcased trophies and certificates. When she brought home straight A's, I brought home detention slips for daydreaming in class. Not that I was a bad student, I maintained a solid B average, but next to Samantha's perfection, I might as well have been failing. Megan, please pass the wine, my father said, interrupting my thoughts during that fateful dinner. Richard Thompson, investment banker and pillar of Boston society, had mastered the art of emotional absence wrapped in a three-piece suit. He never yelled like Mom did. His disappointment came in the form of silence and diverted attention. I passed the bottle, careful not to spill on the pristine tablecloth. Mom would never let me hear the end of it. So tell us more about this promotion, Sam, he continued, completely ignoring the fact that I'd just landed a new freelance client myself. I'd mentioned it earlier, but it had evaporated into the air like it never happened. Well, Samantha flipped her perfectly highlighted hair. Anderson Global basically created the position for me. They said they've never had someone turn around a marketing division so quickly. Mom Patricia Thompson, charity board member and social climber extraordinaire, practically vibrated with pride. Imagine that chief marketing officer at 32. I sipped my wine and thought about my cramped apartment where I ran my freelance graphic design business. The rent was late again, and my boyfriend Mark had moved out last month, saying he couldn't handle my family drama anymore. Apparently, being constantly compared to Samantha had made me too needy. And the salary is just. Mom trailed off, fanning herself dramatically. Patricia, that's not appropriate, Dad, muttered, but his eyes gleamed with interest. No, it's fine, Samantha laughed. Let's just say I can finally afford that condo in Beacon Hill I've had my eye on. I nearly choked. Beacon Hill was one of Boston's most expensive neighborhoods. Even with her previous job, that seemed like a stretch. Megan, how's your little drawing business, Mom? Asked her tone, making clear exactly how she felt about my career choice. It's graphic design, Mom, and it's going well. I just signed Horizon Coffee for a complete rebrand. Dad checked his watch. Samantha scrolled through her phone. Mom nodded absently. That's nice, dear. Did I mention Samantha will have an assistant? Her own assistant. After dinner, I escaped to the bathroom, needing a moment away from the Samantha worship service. On my way back, I passed the guest room where Samantha had left her purse. Her phone buzzed on the bedside table, lighting up with a notification. I shouldn't have looked. I really shouldn't have. But there it was, an email preview that made me freeze read discrepancies in your application materials. Without thinking, I picked up the phone. Samantha never locked it. She always said she had nothing to hide. The email was from HR at Anderson Global, requesting an urgent meeting regarding inconsistencies in your employment history and academic credentials. My heart pounded as I scrolled further. There were dozens of similar emails, some going back weeks. Another from someone named Jeremy read, "This has gone too far, Sam. I covered for you at Miller and Associates, but I won't lie to Anderson. Fix this or I'm coming forward." I heard footsteps in the hall and quickly put down the phone, my mind racing. The perfect Samantha Thompson was a fraud. It seemed impossible, yet the evidence was lighting up her phone like a Christmas tree. "What are you doing in here?" Samantha stood in the doorway, her expression shifting from surprise to suspicion. Just looking for some aspirin, I lied, moving toward the door. Headache. Her eyes darted to the phone, then back to me. Find what you needed. The double meaning wasn't lost on me. Not yet, I answered carefully. But I think I will. The discovery about Samantha gnawed at me for days. I couldn't focus on client work. I kept opening new browser tabs to search her name, scouring LinkedIn and news mentions for inconsistencies. The perfect sister narrative began showing hairline fractures under scrutiny. After a week of internal debate, I made a decision. If I was going to accuse my sister of fraud, potentially blowing up our family and her career, I needed more than a glimpse of suspicious emails. I created a fake email address and contacted Miller and Associates where Samantha had worked before joining Westfield Marketing Group, which preceded Anderson Global. I posed as a recruiter doing a background check. I'm so sorry, but our records show Samantha Thompson was only a marketing coordinator here, not a senior marketing director, as listed on her resume, the HR person replied. This gave me the courage to visit Westfield Marketing in person. I claimed to be collecting recommendations for a surprise career achievement book for Samantha. The receptionist directed me to Claire Bennett, who had been Samantha's supervisor. Oh, Claire said, her smile faltering when I mentioned Samantha. She was ambitious. She must have done amazing work to be promoted so quickly, I prompted. Claire's lips thinned. Did Samantha tell you she was promoted here? I nodded. That's interesting because she wasn't. In fact, she was on a performance improvement plan when she left. There was an incident with a colleague's presentation that she claimed as her own. We were considering termination. My stomach dropped. I had no idea. Are you close with your sister? Claire asked. We're different, I managed. She nodded knowingly. The project she took credit for it was brilliant work. The actual creator was devastated. He left marketing altogether afterward. That evening, I dug deeper into Samantha's academic credentials. I contacted Harvard Business School's alumni office, inquiring about graduation photos for the same surprise gift. They had no record of her graduation. The pieces formed a disturbing pattern. Samantha hadn't just embellished, she'd fabricated entire chunks of her history. But why? And how had no one caught her? I found the answer in old family photo albums. Every achievement Dad proudly displayed in his office, Samantha's Harvard diploma, her industry awards I could now see were either photoshopped or purchased replicas. 3 days later, I invited Samantha for coffee. The upscale cafe was my choice-neutral territory, public enough to prevent a scene. I need to talk to you about something serious, I said after our drinks arrived. Her perfect smile remained fixed. You sound so dramatic, Meg. I know about Miller and Associates, and Westfield, and Harvard. I kept my voice low. The color drained from her face. What are you talking about? I slid a folder across the table containing printouts of my findings. You never graduated from Harvard. You were never a director at Miller. You almost got fired from Westfield for stealing someone's work. Her hands trembled as she opened the folder. Where did you get this? It wasn't hard to find once I started looking, I said. The question is, how has no one else noticed? Samantha's perfect facade cracked. Tears filled her eyes. You don't understand what it's like, Megan. The expectations. Dad's disappointment if I brought home anything less than perfection. Mom's constant comparisons to her friends' children. So you just lied about everything. I embellished at first, she whispered. A small promotion became a bigger one. Then it spiraled. I had to keep up appearances, fake more credentials. But I'm good at the work, Megan. I just needed a chance to prove myself. By stepping on other people, that guy at Westfield left his career because of you. She reached across the table, grabbing my hand. Please, Meg. It would kill Mom and Dad if they knew. Dad's reputation in the financial community, his clients trust him because of our family's success. And Mom, you know how much her social standing means to her. I pulled my hand away. You need to come clean, Samantha. At least to Anderson Global. I can't. Panic filled her voice. I'll lose everything, please, Megan. Give me time to make this right. I'll find a way to fix it without destroying everything I've built. You mean everything you've stolen? Her tears flowed freely now, mascara tracking down her cheeks. For the first time in my life, perfect Samantha looked broken. I'm your sister. I've made mistakes, but I'm begging you. Don't do this. Against my better judgment, I felt myself wavering. How would you even fix this? I'll find a way to earn the credentials legitimately. Take night classes. I'll make anonymous amends to the people I've hurt. She wiped her tears. Just give me a chance, Meg. I'll make it right, I promise. I shouldn't have believed her. Every instinct screamed this was another manipulation, but she was my sister, and for once she needed me. 3 months, I said finally. You have 3 months to start making this right, or I'll go public with everything. Thank you, she whispered, composing herself with remarkable speed. You won't regret this. I promise. As we left the cafe, she hugged me tightly. You're a good sister, Megan. Better than I deserve. I should have recognized the calculation behind her embrace. Instead, I foolishly believed I'd finally earned my sister's genuine appreciation. I had no idea I'd just handed her exactly what she needed to destroy me. 3 weeks passed. Samantha called regularly, updating me on supposed progress with online courses and making amends. I wanted to believe her. For the first time in our relationship, I felt like the stronger one, the one helping her. It was intoxicating after a lifetime in her shadow. Sunday brunch at our parents' house became a new tradition during this period. Mom insisted, saying she rarely saw both her successful girls together anymore. I knew the real reason was to showcase Samantha's continuing achievements, but I went anyway. I have news, Samantha announced, delicately cutting into her eggs, Benedict. She'd chosen the seat nearest the window where the morning light illuminated her features perfectly, a photographer's instinct I'd always admired despite myself. You're not pregnant, are you, Mom? Gasped, immediately revealing her eagerness for grandchildren. No, Mom, Samantha laughed. Anderson Global has asked me to head their new international division. I'll be overseeing marketing for all European expansion. Mom actually clapped her hands together. Dad beamed with pride. That's my girl. I nearly choked on my mimosa. This was her idea of making things right, accepting an even bigger position based on fraudulent credentials. Congratulations, I managed catching her eye. She gave me a small, secretive smile that seemed to say, trust me. After the celebratory toast, Mom disappeared upstairs, returning with a small, wrapped box. We were going to save this for your birthday, but this seems like the perfect moment. Samantha unwrapped it to reveal an elegant watch that I immediately recognized as a Cartier. Even with her inflated salary, it would have been a stretch. It's beautiful, she gushed, slipping it onto her wrist. Only the best for our star, Dad, said, oblivious to my discomfort. Later that afternoon, as I drove home, my phone rang with an unknown number. Is this Megan Thompson? A stern voice asked. Yes, who's calling? This is Lawrence Weiss, head of security at Anderson Global. We need to speak with you regarding some serious allegations. My blood ran cold. What allegations? We have evidence suggesting you've been helping your sister falsify credentials and references. We'd like you to come in tomorrow to discuss this matter. That's ridiculous, I sputtered. I've never. We have emails, Miss Thompson. From your account to several references confirming false employment histories. This is corporate fraud, potentially criminal. We're also in contact with the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. The world tilted beneath me. There must be some mistake. Be at our offices tomorrow at 9 a.m., he interrupted, or we'll be forced to escalate this matter. I barely made it home before my phone exploded with text messages from my parents. Dad, what have you done, Mom? Samantha is devastated. How could you try to sabotage her like this? I called them immediately. What are you talking about? Samantha just called us in tears, Mom said, her voice icy. Anderson Global found emails showing you created fake references and employment verifications for her. They think you were trying to sabotage her by making her credentials look falsified. That's insane. She's the one who's been lying. Enough, Dad interrupted. Samantha warned us you might try to blame her. She showed us the evidence, Megan. emails from your account, even a recording of you threatening to expose her if she didn't pay you. My mind reeled. A recording, that's impossible. We know you've always been jealous of her success, Mom said, but we never thought you'd stoop this low. Before I could defend myself further, my doorbell rang. 2 police officers stood outside, warrant in hand. Megan Thompson. We have a warrant to search these premises for evidence related to identity fraud, forgery, and corporate espionage. As they entered my apartment, my phone buzzed with a text from Samantha. I'm so sorry it came to this. If you'd just been happy for me instead of trying to destroy me, none of this would have happened. I stared at the message in disbelief as officers began bagging my computer and files. Samantha hadn't been fixing anything these past 3 weeks. She'd been meticulously framing me, creating an elaborate paper trail to make me look like the fraudster, and our parents had believed her without question. In the space of one afternoon, my sister had executed the ultimate betrayal, and I was left to watch my life crumble around me. The next month passed in a nightmarish blur. The investigation into my alleged fraud meant all my freelance contracts were suspended pending resolution. My bank accounts were frozen. My reputation in Boston's tight-knit design community was shattered. I sat in my lawyer's cramped office fighting back tears as he reviewed my case. They've built a compelling narrative against you, Nathan Reed said, sliding his glasses up his nose. Nathan was the only lawyer I could afford after pawning my grandmother's earrings and camera equipment. He was younger than I expected, but his eyes held a sharpness I desperately needed. It's all fabricated, I insisted. Samantha created those emails somehow. She recorded our conversation at the cafe and edited it. I believe you, Nathan said, surprising me. The evidence is too perfect, too comprehensive. Real fraud is messier. So you can prove it's fake. His expression softened. Not yet. Your sister was thorough. She used your actual devices to send emails while you were at your parents' house, probably when you left your phone unattended. The IP addresses check out. I buried my face in my hands. Every Sunday brunch, every family dinner over the past 3 weeks, she'd been plotting while passing me dinner rolls. What about my parents? Surely they'll listen if I explain. You need to prepare yourself, Nathan interrupted gently. Based on our conversation with them, they're fully convinced of your guilt. Your mother said, and I quote, "I always knew you'd try to ruin your sister's success." Those words cut deeper than any legal threat. My own mother. Your father has declined to assist with legal fees, Nathan continued, though he did offer to help if you admitted guilt and sought psychological help. I laughed bitterly. Of course he did. 3 days later, I received an eviction notice. Without income, I couldn't make rent. My landlord had heard about the fraud allegations and wanted me out bad publicity for his building. Rachel, my college roommate and one of the few friends who hadn't abandoned me, offered her couch. It's temporary, she promised as I moved my meager belongings into her 1-bedroom apartment. Once this is cleared up, if it gets cleared up, I corrected, dropping a box of clothes. It will, she insisted. The truth always comes out eventually. But as weeks passed, the truth seemed increasingly irrelevant. Samantha had been promoted again at Anderson Global. The initial investigation was broadening to include my entire career history. Nathan discovered Samantha had been systematically stealing my identity for years, opening credit cards, taking loans, all carefully managed to avoid detection until now. She's been planning this for years, Nathan said during our weekly meeting. The credit trails suggest she's been using your identity as a safety net since college. But why frame me now? Why not just continue the identity theft? Because you caught her, he said simply. You became a liability. This way, even if her fraud is discovered, you're the perfect scapegoat. No one will believe the criminal accusing the golden child. The final blow came in December. A Christmas card arrived at Rachel's apartment, a glossy photo of my parents and Samantha in matching sweaters posed before the fireplace in our family home. Where I should have been standing was empty space clearly edited out. I stared at the card for hours. My entire existence erased with Photoshop, just as Samantha had erased my reputation, my career, and my place in the family with a few carefully crafted emails. That night, I hit rock bottom. Sitting on Rachel's bathroom floor at 3 a.m., I contemplated giving up completely, pleading guilty to crimes I didn't commit, disappearing to some other city where no one knew my name or my sister's. Meg, Rachel knocked softly. "You've been in there for hours." "I'm fine," I called back, my voice betraying me with a crack. She opened the door and sat beside me on the cold tile. "No, you're not. But you will be." "How?" I whispered. "She's taken everything." Rachel took my hand. "Not everything. Not your talent. Not your friends. Not your integrity. Fat lot of good integrity does when everyone thinks you're a criminal." "Everyone doesn't," she insisted. "I believe you. Nathan believes you. And I bet others will too if we find them." I looked at her, something stirring beneath my despair. "Find them. Other people Samantha has hurt," Rachel said. "You can't be the first. Someone like her leaves a trail of victims." For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of something besides despair. It wasn't quite hope, more like determination. If I couldn't save my reputation through conventional means, perhaps I could find others who knew the real Samantha Thompson. "Where do we start?" I asked. Rachel smiled. "We start by getting off this bathroom floor. Then tomorrow we go hunting." January in Boston is brutally cold, and this particular Tuesday was no exception. I'd been job hunting at a cafe near the financial district, applying for design positions under a pseudonym since my real name had become toxic. Megan Thompson. I looked up instantly defensive. A tall man with kind eyes stood beside my table, coffee in hand. "Do I know you?" I asked cautiously. "No, but I know your sister." His expression darkened. "My name is James Carter. I worked with Samantha at Westfield." My heart raced. "You're the one whose presentation she stole." He nodded, gesturing to the empty chair. "Mind if I join you?" Over the next hour, James shared his story. Samantha had systematically stolen his marketing campaign concepts, gradually taking credit for his work while isolating him from management. When he finally confronted her, she tearfully accused him of workplace harassment. He was fired while she was promoted. "I saw your name in the news," he said. "The allegations didn't make sense. You're a designer, not a corporate climber." Then I recognized the pattern. "She's framed me completely," I explained. "No one believes me, not even our parents." James leaned forward. "I believe you. And I'm not the only one she's burned." That afternoon, James introduced me to Alicia Reyes, Samantha's college roommate. Alicia had written papers Samantha passed off as her own, eventually taking the fall for an academic dishonesty case that should have ended Samantha's academic career. "She convinced the board I was jealous and had framed her," Alicia explained, over dinner at Rachel's apartment. "Her parents hired an expensive lawyer. Mine couldn't afford one." By week's end, our group had grown to include Derek, Samantha's ex-boyfriend, who'd discovered she was simultaneously dating a professor for grade advantages, and Taylor, her former assistant, who'd been fired for incompetence after questioning discrepancies in Samantha's expense reports. "There's a pattern," Nathan said, now working my case pro bono after hearing our collective stories. "Samantha builds her success on others, then discards them. When threatened, she doesn't just defend, she destroys." "The question is," Rachel interjected, "how do we prove it when she's been so careful to cover her tracks?" "We pool our evidence," James suggested. "Individually, each of our stories could be dismissed as sour grapes. Together, they form a pattern no one can ignore." For the next 3 weeks, our unlikely alliance worked tirelessly. Derek retrieved emails Samantha had sent him, boasting about manipulating her professors. Taylor had kept copies of the suspicious expense reports. Alicia had documentation of the academic hearing and witnesses who'd seen Samantha copying her work. I contributed my knowledge of her identity theft and falsified credentials. James had recordings of meetings where his ideas were presented in Samantha's voice. Nathan organized everything into a comprehensive legal document, careful to focus on provable facts rather than emotions or speculation. "This is compelling," he said, finally reviewing our work. "But we need an authority willing to look past Samantha's perfect image and your current reputation." The FBI Taylor suggested. Financial Crimes Division. Corporate fraud crosses state lines since Anderson Global operates nationally. They'll dismiss an anonymous tip from someone under investigation, I pointed out. Not if it comes from me, Nathan countered. I can present this as evidence discovered during your defense preparation. They're obligated to investigate. The next day, Nathan made the call. Within hours, an agent contacted him, requesting our evidence dossier. For the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope. Then my phone rang Samantha's number. "What have you done?" she hissed when I answered. "How did you know?" I asked, genuinely surprised. "I have friends everywhere, Megan. The FBI just seized files from my office. They're asking questions about loans in your name." "Maybe you shouldn't have stolen my identity," I replied, my voice steadier than I expected. "Listen to me," she lowered her voice to a desperate whisper. "If you don't stop this, I'll hurt myself. I'll tell everyone it was because of your jealous vendetta. Mom and Dad will never forgive you." The old Megan would have crumbled under this manipulation. But I wasn't that person anymore. "Get help, Samantha. Real help. But I won't let you destroy me to save yourself." I hung up as she began to sob, my hand shaking but my resolve firm. Within minutes, my parents were calling. I let it go to voicemail, already knowing what they would say. Later, I listened to my mother's tearful message accusing me of pushing Samantha to the brink with my false allegations. That night, our alliance gathered at Nathan's office, strategizing next steps. Though we'd made progress, Samantha's influence and head start in crafting her narrative meant we were still fighting uphill. "She's desperate," Nathan warned. "That makes her dangerous. Everyone should be careful about what they share online, where they go alone, who might be watching." As if proving his point, Alicia received a text minutes later from an unknown number. "Think about your kids before you continue this." Our shared anger at this threat crystallized into determination. We were no longer just clearing my name, we were stopping someone who'd hurt too many people for too long. Whatever she throws at us next, I told the group we face it together. What I didn't realize was just how dirty Samantha's counterattack would be. The morning after our FBI tip, I awoke to Rachel shaking my shoulder urgently. "Meg, you need to see this." She handed me her tablet open to the Boston Business Journal's website. The headline made my stomach drop: "Design Fraud, the Jealous Sister Behind the Thompson Identity Theft Ring." The article was a masterpiece of character assassination. It quoted anonymous sources claiming I'd been stealing Samantha's identity for years out of pathological jealousy. It suggested my entire freelance career consisted of stealing other designers' work with convenient examples that mirrored what Samantha had actually done to others. Most devastatingly, it included quotes from my parents. Mom called me troubled since childhood. Dad expressed deep regret that we didn't get her the help she needed sooner. By noon, similar stories appeared in 3 more publications. By dinner, I'd received emails from every remaining client terminating our contracts, including those using my pseudonym. Somehow Samantha had tracked those too. "She must have friends in publishing," Nathan mused, as we gathered for an emergency meeting. "These aren't random blogs, they're respected business publications. My dad's investment firm represents media companies," I explained. "He golfs with half the publishers in New England." The attacks escalated. James was fired after his employer received anonymous evidence of ethical violations. Taylor's new employer received similar allegations. Alicia, a kindergarten teacher and mother of 2, received a call from her principal about concerning information they'd received regarding her character. 3 days later, a legal notice arrived from Patterson and Winthrop, one of Boston's most prestigious law firms. My parents had hired them to represent Samantha. "They're threatening a defamation lawsuit against all of us," Nathan explained, reviewing the document. "They're alleging we've formed a conspiracy to damage Samantha Thompson's reputation out of collective jealousy." "Can they do that?" Derek asked. "They can try," Nathan replied. "It's a intimidation tactic. They know a lawsuit would drain our resources even if we eventually won." The pressure mounted. Alicia received a second threat, mentioning her children's school by name. She withdrew from our group the next day, tears streaming down her face. "I can't risk my kids," she whispered. "I'm sorry." I couldn't blame her. Each day brought new attacks. Rachel's apartment building received complaints about illegal business activities in her unit. The state licensing board received ethics complaints against Nathan. Someone sent James's new potential employers emails warning against hiring him. My own situation worsened. Boston's close-knit design community, initially sympathetic to my claims of being framed, now avoided me completely. Former colleagues crossed the street to avoid conversation. The criminal investigation continued with increasingly hostile questioning from investigators clearly influenced by the media narrative. "We're losing," I admitted to Nathan and Rachel one evening. "She has too much power, too many connections." "Then we need more evidence," Nathan insisted. "Something definitive that can't be explained away." The opportunity came unexpectedly. My parents' wedding anniversary approached their 35th, a milestone they'd been planning to celebrate for months. Despite everything they maintained, the fiction of a perfect family, which meant Samantha would be at their home for the celebration. "Samantha keeps documents at your parents' house," Rachel realized. "You mentioned she has a private office there." "I can't exactly walk in and search it," I pointed out. "They'd call the police." "But they're having that big anniversary party," Rachel countered. "Lots of guests, catering staff, confusion." The plan formed quickly. Rachel would pose as catering staff for the event. She'd worked for the same company in college and still knew people there. During the party, she would create a distraction while I slipped into Samantha's office. It was risky. If caught, I'd face trespassing charges on top of everything else. But we were running out of options. The night of the party, I watched from a coffee shop across the street as guests arrived at my childhood home. Through the windows, I could see my mother greeting people, Samantha at her side like a reflection. My father poured champagne. They looked happy, unbothered by my absence from this family milestone. At precisely 9:15 p.m., Rachel texted, "Now." I crossed the street using the caterer's entrance Rachel had left unlocked. Dressed in black, with my hair tucked under a cap, I slipped through the kitchen where staff bustled preparing desserts. From the main room came the sound of breaking glass, and Rachel's practiced, "Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry," as she created our diversion. I climbed the back stairs to Samantha's office, formerly the guest room where I'd first discovered her emails. The door was locked, but I'd anticipated this. Growing up, I'd learned to pick the old-fashioned locks in our house after being locked out repeatedly during Samantha's teenage parties. Inside, the room was meticulously organized, unlike my chaotic creative space. Files labeled by year lined one bookshelf. Her laptop sat on the desk, likely password protected. I went straight for the filing cabinet, starting with the most recent years. What I found exceeded my wildest hopes. Samantha kept everything, perhaps out of arrogance or a need to revisit her manipulations. There were original emails she'd later altered to frame me, notes on how she'd manufactured each piece of evidence, a journal detailing her systematic identity theft using my information as a financial safety net. Most damning were documents about my parents, emails proving they'd known about Samantha's academic fraud years ago, records of payments to silence potential whistleblowers, letters from my father to university connections ensuring Samantha's falsified transcripts wouldn't be scrutinized. They hadn't just favored her, they'd been active participants in her deceptions. I photographed everything with my phone, hands shaking. When I heard footsteps in the hallway, I quickly replaced the files and slipped behind the door. "I know I left it in here," my mother's voice came through as she entered. She retrieved a jewelry box from the desk drawer, then paused, looking around suspiciously. For a moment I thought she sensed my presence. Then she left, closing the door behind her. I waited 5 minutes before making my escape. Rachel met me at our rendezvous point 3 blocks away, still in her catering uniform. "Did you find anything?" she asked anxiously. I showed her the photos. Everything I whispered. And worse. The documents I'd found revealed a truth far more painful than I'd imagined. My parents weren't merely biased toward Samantha, they were architects of her fraudulent success. Nathan, Rachel, James, Derek, Taylor, and I gathered in Nathan's office the next morning reviewing the evidence. Your father used his connections to silence the Harvard academic dishonesty case, Nathan observed, reading through the files. He paid off a professor who caught her cheating. And your mother, Rachel, added gently she actively helped create Samantha's false professional image. These emails show she coached Samantha on how to take credit for others' work without getting caught. The family business, my father's investment firm, had partially funded Samantha's lifestyle through a shadow salary disguised as consulting fees. Tax documents revealed they'd been claiming business expenses for her personal shopping, travel, and housing for years. This explains why they turned on you so quickly, James said. They're protecting themselves, not just Samantha. It's a family conspiracy, Taylor whispered. I sat silently absorbing the magnitude of the betrayal. My entire childhood suddenly made sense, the constant comparisons, the dismissal of my achievements, the unwavering support for Samantha despite obvious red flags. They'd invested too much in her fraudulent image to allow me to expose it. We need to confront them, I said finally. Nathan looked concerned. Is that wise? This evidence is valuable precisely because they don't know we have it. I need to hear them admit it, I insisted. Face to face. The others exchanged worried glances but didn't argue. We formed a plan. I would confront my parents alone, wearing a recording device Nathan provided. The others would wait nearby in case things went wrong. That evening, I drove to my parents' house for the first time in months. The familiarity of the tree-lined driveway felt surreal after everything that had happened. Lights glowed warmly from within the perfect family home, hiding perfect lies. Mom opened the door, her shock quickly morphing into suspicion. "Megan, what are you doing here?" "We need to talk," I said, stepping forward so she couldn't easily close the door. "About Samantha. About Harvard. About all of it." Her face paled. "Richard," she called. "Richard, come quickly." Dad appeared from his study, drink in hand. "You shouldn't be here," he said coldly. "We have nothing to discuss until you agree to treatment." Treatment for what I asked, following them into the living room despite their obvious reluctance, for being the only honest person in this family. "Here we go again with the accusations," Mom sighed dramatically. "When will you stop blaming others for your failures?" I placed Samantha's journal on the coffee table. "I know everything. The academic fraud, the payoffs, the corporate espionage, your involvement in all of it." Their expressions shifted subtly, the momentary widening of eyes, the tightening of Dad's grip on his glass. They exchanged a glance I'd seen countless times growing up, the silent communication of conspirators. "That's private property," Dad said finally. "You broke into our home." "I came to my family home during a party," I corrected, "and found evidence of multiple felonies. Would you like me to list them?" Mom sat down abruptly. "You've always been so dramatic, Megan." "Dramatic," I laughed bitterly. "You helped Samantha frame me for crimes she committed. You told the media I was mentally unstable. You destroyed my reputation, my career, my life, and I'm being dramatic." "We've only ever wanted what's best for this family," Dad said, his tone shifting to the reasonable businessman voice he used to close difficult deals. "Best for the family, or best for your image?" "They're the same thing," Mom snapped, dropping all pretense. "This family's reputation is everything. Your father's business depends on it. Our place in society depends on it. And that justifies fraud, identity theft, destroying innocent people's lives." "Samantha made some mistakes," Dad conceded, "but she's also achieved extraordinary things. The world isn't black and white, Megan. So my life was an acceptable sacrifice for the greater good of the Thompson family image." "No one asked you to pursue that artsy career with no security," Mom said dismissively. "No one asked you to challenge Samantha when you discovered discrepancies. You could have been part of this family's success if you'd just played your role." The casual cruelty of her statement left me momentarily speechless. "We can still fix this," Dad said, seeing my silence as weakness. "There's a treatment facility in Switzerland. Very discreet. You'll get the help you need, and when you return, we can reintroduce you to society with a suitable position in a family friend's company." You want to have me committed, I whispered. It's for your own good, Mom insisted. These delusions about your sister, these attacks on the family, it's not healthy, Megan. Let me get this straight, I said, finding my voice again. You want me to agree to be labeled mentally ill, disappear to Switzerland, then come back and pretend none of this happened, while Samantha continues her fraudulent career built on identity theft and corporate espionage. We're offering you a way back into this family, Dad said sternly. Your only way back. I stood up, suddenly calm. I don't want back into this family. I want justice. Mom laughed coldly. Justice, who do you think people will believe? The unstable artist with a history of jealousy or the respected Thompson family with connections throughout Boston? I think they'll believe evidence, I replied, retrieving Samantha's journal. And I have plenty. Dad's expression darkened. How much? Excuse me. How much to walk away? Name your price. The offer hung in the air between us. For a moment, I imagined taking it the easy way out. Financial security, a fresh start somewhere far from Boston. There isn't enough money in the world, I said finally. This has never been about money. It's about truth. Truth is a luxury, Dad replied. One you can't afford. We're your parents, Megan, Mom added. Despite everything, we love you. But we're giving you an ultimatum. Choose the family or choose to be alone. I looked at them, really looked at them perhaps for the first time. These successful, respected people who'd raised me, who'd shaped my understanding of family, love, and morality. I saw now what I'd been too loyal to see before. They were hollow, their values corrupt, their love conditional on compliance. I choose integrity, I said simply. Goodbye. I walked out of my childhood home for the last time. In the car, I turned off the recording device, hands shaking but resolve firm. That night, I compiled everything: the documents from Samantha's office, the recorded conversation with my parents, statements from James and the others, into a comprehensive package. The next morning, Nathan delivered it to the FBI with a formal complaint, naming all three Thompsons in the conspiracy. As Nathan left the federal building, he texted me a single word: done. The FBI moves deliberately, but once in motion with unstoppable momentum. 3 weeks after our evidence submission, agents simultaneously raided Samantha's office at Anderson Global and my parents' home. The timing was strategic: early morning, when all targets would be present, synchronized to prevent warning or evidence destruction. I watched the Anderson Global raid on a local news live stream from Rachel's apartment. Cameras captured Samantha being escorted out, her perfect composure finally cracking as she realized the severity of the situation. She searched the gathered crowd, perhaps looking for allies or an escape route. Finding neither, her shoulders slumped in defeat. My phone buzzed continuously as news broke. Former colleagues who'd shunned me sent tentative messages of support. Design community members who'd believed the worst about me offered apologies. I let them all go to voicemail. Those bridges could be rebuilt later, if at all. Samantha Thompson, daughter of prominent Boston financier Richard Thompson, has been taken into custody on charges including wire fraud, identity theft, and corporate espionage, the news anchor announced. Sources say the investigation extends to Thompson Financial Group, with allegations of a years-long conspiracy involving multiple family members. The story dominated Boston news for days. Details emerged in carefully orchestrated leaks, some from the FBI, others likely from my parents' desperate attempts at damage control. The narrative shifted rapidly from jealous sister frame's successful sibling to family conspiracy exposed by whistleblower. My parents retreated behind their lawyers' statements, but their social standing crumbled as details of their involvement emerged. Dad's firm lost major clients. Mom's charity board positions disappeared overnight. Former friends denied close relationships with impressive speed. Meanwhile, Samantha made one last desperate attempt at manipulation. She was released on bail after her initial hearing and immediately checked herself into an exclusive mental health facility, her lawyers releasing a statement about her struggles with pressure and family expectations. Nathan called with updates from his legal contacts. They're building a strong case. Your documents gave them a roadmap to follow, and they're finding even more than we expected. The identity theft alone spans 7 states, making it federal. What about my charges? I asked. The investigation against me remained technically open. Being dropped as we speak, he confirmed. The prosecutor is actually impressed with your documentation. Said it was better organized than most of their own case files. Professionally, things began turning around too. The truth about Samantha's fraud led clients back to my door, initially out of curiosity or sympathy, but they stayed for the quality of my work. I moved out of Rachel's apartment into a small but comfortable studio of my own. James Taylor and Derek found their reputations restored as well. We formed a loose support network, occasionally meeting to share updates and recovery milestones. Our shared experience created a bond stronger than many friendships I'd had before. 6 months after the initial raids, Samantha's case moved toward trial. The evidence was overwhelming, with new victims continuing to emerge. Her lawyers pursued increasingly desperate defense strategies, from diminished capacity to claiming she was a victim of our parents' manipulation. Then came the news I hadn't anticipated. Samantha was offered a plea deal in exchange for testifying against our parents. "She'll take it," I told Rachel over dinner. "She always saves herself first." Sure enough, 2 days later, Samantha agreed to plead guilty to reduced charges in exchange for her testimony. She would serve time between 3 and 5 years in a minimum security facility, but far less than the potential 20-year sentence she'd faced. The real shock came when she attempted to flee. Despite surrendering her passport and wearing an ankle monitor, Samantha somehow made it to Logan International Airport with a fake ID and a ticket to a non-extradition country. FBI agents intercepted her at the gate, adding flight risk to her growing list of charges. I watched this final act of desperation on the evening news, feeling strangely hollow. The sister I'd grown up with, competed with, envied, and feared, was being led away in handcuffs, her designer outfit replaced by a standard-issue jumpsuit, her careful makeup streaked with tears. "Do you feel vindicated?" Rachel asked, watching me closely. "I don't know what I feel," I admitted. "Relief, maybe, but not happiness." As Samantha's case concluded with her guilty plea and imprisonment, my parents faced their own reckoning. Their trial would take longer, involve more charges, and expose decades of financial misconduct beyond just Samantha's fraud. Throughout this period, they made repeated attempts to contact me. Letters arrived at my new address, somehow obtained, despite my privacy measures. Voicemails accumulated, evolving from demanding to pleading as their legal situation worsened. "They want you to testify for them," Nathan explained, after reviewing a formal request from their attorneys. "Character witnesses, family loyalty, the whole performance. And if I refuse, you have every right to. They can subpoena you, but given your documented history as a victim of their actions, no judge would force your cooperation." I sat with this decision for days, weighing obligations of blood against the depth of betrayal. In the end, I sent a simple response through Nathan: "I will testify to the truth, whatever that may be. Nothing more, nothing less." They never contacted me again. As spring turned to summer, my life settled into a new normal. Nathan offered me a position designing marketing materials for his growing law practice. I accepted, grateful for both the income stability and the company of someone who'd stood by me at my lowest. My story attracted media attention, but I declined most interview requests. The exception was an in-depth piece for a business ethics journal where I detailed how high achievement culture and family dynamics can enable fraud. The article resonated widely, leading to speaking invitations I cautiously began to accept. One warm September evening, I received an unexpected letter with a prison return address. Unlike my parents' attempts at contact, which I'd largely ignored, this one I opened immediately. Samantha's handwriting had changed, less perfectly controlled, more human somehow. "Megan," she began, "I don't expect forgiveness, nor do I deserve it. But after months of mandatory therapy and time to reflect, I need to acknowledge the harm I've done to you. There is no excuse for my actions. I systematically destroyed your reputation, stole your identity, and betrayed you in the worst possible ways when you gave me a chance to make amends. I understand now that my behavior reflects serious psychological issues I've never addressed. I am truly sorry, not as a strategy or manipulation, but as the beginning of whatever amends might be possible. I don't expect a response. I just needed you to know. I read the letter several times, searching for the hidden angle, the subtle manipulation. Finding none, I placed it in a drawer without responding. Perhaps someday I would. Perhaps never. The choice was finally mine alone. 6 months after Samantha's sentencing, I stood in my new apartment, morning light streaming through windows that overlooked a small park rather than Boston's financial district. I'd chosen this neighborhood, Cambridge, rather than downtown, deliberately. New space, new associations, new beginnings. My design business had not only recovered but thrived in unexpected ways. The publicity surrounding my family's case had initially brought curiosity seekers, but my work kept them coming back. I'd found a niche, creating brand identities for startups founded on ethical business practices, companies that valued transparency and integrity over appearance. "Ready for this?" Rachel asked, arranging coffee mugs on the counter of my new kitchen. She'd been my constant throughout the ordeal, and though I'd insisted she reclaim her apartment and privacy, our friendship had only strengthened. "As ready as I'll ever be," I replied, checking my presentation notes one last time. Today marked my first major public speaking engagement, a business ethics conference where I'd been invited to discuss reputation management and recovery from professional sabotage. Nathan had encouraged me to accept, saying my story could help others facing similar situations. The journey to this point hadn't been linear. There were still days when I checked over my shoulder expecting to find someone following me. Nights when I woke in panic, dreaming of police at my door. Sessions with my therapist where I raged about the years of manipulation I'd endured, the family dynamics that had shaped my self-doubt. "Have you heard from your parents?" Rachel asked cautiously, knowing this remained a tender subject. "Their attorney sent another reconciliation request last week," I said, stirring my coffee. "Same as before, they want to heal the family before their sentencing next month. And I'm not interested in being a character witness or a sympathetic family presence in the courtroom." I'd maintained my boundaries despite increasing pressure as my parents' trial concluded. They'd been found guilty on multiple counts of financial fraud, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. What about Samantha's letter? Rachel knew I'd received several more since the first one. "I read them," I admitted. "They seem genuine. The prison psychologist thinks her narcissistic tendencies are finally being addressed through consistent therapy. Are you going to respond?" I shrugged. "Maybe someday. I'm not ready to forgive, but I'm working on not letting it consume me anymore." The process of rebuilding my life had taught me valuable lessons about resilience and self-worth. I'd created a support network of people who valued me for myself, not as someone's daughter or sister. James Taylor, Derek, and I still met monthly, our shared experience forging a unique bond. Nathan had become both mentor and friend, his belief in me never wavering even when mine did. Most importantly, I'd learned to trust my own perceptions again after a lifetime of gaslighting. My parents and Samantha had convinced me for years that my feelings were wrong, my observations invalid, my achievements insignificant. Breaking free of that conditioning had been harder than clearing my name. The business ethics conference went better than I'd anticipated. Speaking to a room of professionals about integrity and reputation recovery, I found strength in my vulnerability. Questions followed not about the salacious details of my family's crimes, but about rebuilding after betrayal. "How do you establish trust with new colleagues after experiencing such profound deception?" one attendee asked. Slowly, I answered honestly. "I still struggle with this. But I've learned that while being cautious is wise, building walls is self-defeating. The key is finding people who earn trust through consistent actions rather than grand promises." After the conference, Nathan joined Rachel and me for dinner. "I have news," he announced, uncharacteristically hesitant. "Your father's attorney reached out again. Not about reconciliation this time." I set down my fork. "What then?" "They've discovered terminal cancer. Late stage. He's requesting one final meeting before he begins hospice care." The news hit me with unexpected force. Despite everything, this man had been my father for 28 years. I'd spent my childhood seeking his approval, teenage years trying to earn his attention, adult years living in the shadow of his preference for Samantha. What do you think I should do? I asked. Professionally, there's nothing to gain or lose legally at this point, Nathan said. Personally, that's entirely your choice. Whatever you decide, I'll support you. I spent a week contemplating this final crossroads with my family. My therapist asked questions rather than offering advice. What would I regret, more going or not going? What did I hope to achieve? What boundaries would I need? In the end, I decided to visit my father once, not for his sake, but for my own closure. I set strict conditions through Nathan, a public location, his attorney present a time limit, and Rachel waiting nearby. We met in a private room at Massachusetts General Hospital. Richard Thompson had always been a commanding presence, tall, broad-shouldered, impeccably dressed. The man in the hospital chair was diminished, his expensive sweater hanging loose on his frame. "Megan," he said, voice raspier than I remembered. "Thank you for coming." I took the seat across from him, maintaining physical and emotional distance. "I'm here to listen, not to absolve." He nodded, seeming to accept my terms. "I don't have excuses. But before I die, I want you to understand something. The choices I made, the favoritism, the fraud, all of it, they weren't because Samantha was better or because you weren't enough. They were because she was more like me. I saw myself in her ambition, her willingness to bend rules to succeed. That's not ambition, I countered. That's corruption. Yes, he admitted, surprising me. I see that now. Too late, but I see it. You were always the better person, Megan. The honest one. The one with real talent rather than just ruthless determination. I was too blind to value that. I felt no triumph in his acknowledgement, no vindication. Just a profound sadness for the relationship we might have had in some alternate universe where values weren't so distorted. Your mother won't admit any of this, he continued. She still believes we did what was necessary for the family. Maybe she always will. I didn't come for information about Mom, I said. I came to close this chapter. He looked at me, really looked at me perhaps for the first time. You've built something good from the ruins we created. I'm proud of you for whatever that's worth now. Very little, I replied honestly. But thank you for saying it anyway. When our time ended, I stood to leave, without the emotional scene he might have hoped for. No tearful reconciliation, no deathbed forgiveness. Just quiet closure on a relationship that could never be repaired. Goodbye, Dad, I said, using the term one final time. 3 weeks later, Richard Thompson died with Patricia at his side. I sent flowers but did not attend the small private funeral. Samantha was not permitted to attend at all, watching via video from prison. That autumn, I expanded my business to include workshops for people rebuilding after personal or professional betrayal. I partnered with Nathan to create resources for identity theft victims. I volunteered with a program helping young women recognize and escape manipulative relationships. In December, I received a Christmas card, not from my family, but from my new circle of friends and allies. Rachel, Nathan, James Taylor, Derek, and others who'd stood by me through the darkest times. To chosen family, the inscription read, "The ones who value truth over convenience, support over advantage, and love without conditions." I placed it on my mantle, a reminder that while blood may connect us to our relatives, it's our choices that create our true family. At my final therapy session of the year, my counselor asked what I'd learned from the entire experience. That success built on lies will eventually collapse, I said after consideration. That integrity matters more than appearance. That some bridges should be burned rather than repaired. And that it's possible to lose a biological family and still find belonging. As I left her office, snow beginning to fall over Cambridge, I felt lighter than I had in years. The weight of family expectations, the shadow of Samantha's perfection, the burden of constantly seeking approval, all had been lifted not because I'd overcome them, but because I'd finally recognized they weren't mine to carry. The path forward wasn't perfect or certain. There would be difficult days, moments of doubt, perhaps even new challenges from my remaining family. But for the first time, I was walking my own path, guided by my own values rather than someone else's expectations. And that, I realized, was the true measure of success. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this story. Have you ever had to set boundaries with toxic family members or rebuild after betrayal? What does success mean to you? Is it about appearances or something deeper? Leave a comment below, like this video, if it resonated with you. Subscribe for more real-life stories and share with someone who might need to hear that chosen family can be more healing than blood ties. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to walk away from those who don't value your truth.